Hi, Derek Curtin here, Chairman at Telecom Council of Silicon Valley. It's June 21 and I'm just back in the office after our meeting on mobile edge compute, 5G, and the Olympics. This meeting was an interesting meeting where we said, there's a lot of really incredible technology that pushes the boundaries that countries and mobile carriers and equipment vendors try to launch around major global sporting events like the Olympics. Because there's a global audience watching, and it's a fantastic place for them to showcase their best technology for the town and the province, the region, or the nation, to say, look, we are a technology-friendly location, a technology-friendly government, a country that's good to invest for STEM, for telecommunications, for computing. And so it's a showcase of the latest and greatest stuff. So with these big global events like the World Cup, like the Olympics, we kind of ratchet up the state of technology and the things we accomplish worldwide. And that becomes something that other countries can emulate and roll into the normal networks. So we hosted a meeting where we wanted to talk about what are the cool things telecom companies are doing. And we found a lot of them around mobile edge compute and around the 5G networks that are now being tested and deployed. So we talked about the Olympics, Formula One racing, World Cup soccer, some other sporting events, and how the interesting things develop there. And we heard from Orange, we heard from Intel, who have a big department and a lot of investments around this, Tata, Communication Services, InterDigital, Huawei, and we heard from a group out of Utah that is developing technologies around Salt Lake City. It's called UStar, so it's making them kind of a test bed of these kind of event-based technologies. So some of the cool things we saw was notions like using these 5G, these mobile edge compute technologies, and kind of IoT to turn athletes into sensors. So if you picture a bunch of cross-country skiers skiing through a course, where previously the cameras just aim at them and the audience around the world watches the race, and maybe they can see a clock saying the leader is 1 minute ahead of the second. And with using IoT technologies and using the skiers have equipment on themselves, turn them into sensors, lets you see them moving on a map in real time. Gives you real-time information on their actual ground speed, on their heart rate, and how they're doing with respect to managing their metabolism as they go through the race. So it adds a bunch of elements that can be very interesting for the sports fan. Other things that were interesting were testing 5G networks. So wiring buses at Pyeongchang Olympics so that they could have real-time video displays of the sports going on, even as those buses were mobile around the Olympic venues. Other things are using edge technologies to keep everything really local. So for example, inside a stadium, you've got multiple camera angles available, but not just for the broadcasters broadcasting abroad internationally watching the Olympics, but for the people inside the stadium to watch instant replays themselves and picking the camera angle they wanted on their mobile device. And that whole experience can stay inside the stadium, offering the lowest latency and also not clogging the outlink from the stadium outwards with bandwidth for those people inside. One of the coolest ideas I heard discussed at a meeting, and I'm going to close with this, was the notion of taking fantasy gaming or fantasy sports to the next level. And this was a concept that, going back to cross-country skiing, if you're a cross-country skier and you fancy yourself an erstwhile Olympian, but your desk job just didn't make that happen, you can find a way to say, well, I'm a weekend warrior. I'm going to get on my little treadmill device that's for cross-country skiing. I'm going to put some sensors on myself. But the key here is I'm going to put on a set of goggles and connect to a VR experience at the Olympic Games. And the VR experience is going to put me inside the real-time cross-country ski race that's happening in Pyeongchang. Now, this is a forward-looking idea that hasn't happened yet. But the notion is that an enthusiast can then put these goggles on, get on their little machine, and start skiing, and virtually participate in that race. So if they say, oh look, I'm just behind the second place skier, I can overtake. They would step up, accelerate their pace, and in real time see themselves possibly passing either a real-time video or an avatar for that second place skier. Go, oh, and I'm going for first place. And of course, since we're not Olympian skiers, you can kind of have a dial for you. Give me your cheat dial. Give me a 20% advantage, give me a 30% advantage. So you give yourself that kind of handicap, but you would really be able to work and be involved, set a goal that you wanted with a 30% handicap, you want to be an Olympian, and maybe see if that's the case. So it really gets the user involved in the sport, but it relies on having each of those skiers very connected to a cloud system and very low latency, so that if you drifted back or if you stopped, the race would react to you immediately in real time, wherever you are in the world. So pretty interesting ideas from our meeting, and there's clearly a lot of interesting things coming out of sporting events, and we're going to keep looking at them year over year and see what the industry brings us. So that's my wrap up. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.